the founder of We Are Museums. For 7 years it was a community. Your little list just before was like super relevant for us, because for 7 years it was definitely a community of practice. We were really learning from each other, having 300 museum professionals trying to understand what will be the future of museums, coming from different regions, different countries, different cultures. And after 7 years gathering and understanding how we can help each other, we actually turned into a movement, thinking that museums are less and less neutral. They are actually more and more activist, and they have very direct connection with the local communities. And then we actually started to understand how museum could get this very close relationship with the neighbors, with the local communities, with the micro communities, with indigenous communities as well. And basically we understood that museums, they were really doing their best to talk to the neighbors, but what we faced is that it was not always strong enough or fast enough or efficient enough, I would say. And then basically I started to interview different people coming from the Biomimicry Academy. I started to do a lot of research, and I started to understand how you could get inspired by the nature, by the natural biodiversity and natural ecosystem. So museums could actually create this kind of big biodiversity and finally connect with the neighbors and finally create this ecosystem that will be very powerful and relevant. So you will see it, everything will become very clear afterwards, but it's basically this community of museums wanting to connect with the neighbors better, and learning that from looking at nature, you could really understand how you can connect with the people. So I got inspired by nature and by permeability. I started to interview people on how they could become I'm talking about people, but for me it's actually museums. I'm starting to interview museum people, understanding how they could connect with the neighbors, like where actually the limit between the museum and the neighborhood is starting. And we came up with this topic that is called the museumhood. So it's a mix of brotherhood and neighborhood. And then our museum could actually become as porous as possible, how they can get inspired by their community and change the way they set up a collection, they set up a space, an exhibition, how they set up a program of activity. And then, the word of permeability came up, and I started to understand how permeability is actually possible in nature. So basically what you need to understand in nature is that it's not one element one element is never enough. You need to have a right combination of different elements to create something. So for instance, to create permeability, you need open spaces, you need infiltration, you need porosity, and you need redundancy. And that's actually what you find in the skin of African elephants. So if you understand how the skin is working, if you want an elephant to be able to cope with a very dry climate and to keep the mud and let the skin infiltrate the water, you need to have all these wrinkles and folds, you need to have this kind of texture, you need to have open spaces, you need to have different form and shapes of wrinkles. So when I'm talking about redundancy, it's actually the diversity of shapes. When I'm talking about infiltration, it's something that it's a skin, it's a surface that is able to infiltrate some water and some mud. When I'm talking about porosity, it's actually a surface that is able to keep some components, to keep some elements, and to spread it when it's necessary. And you have the main component that is actually making this skin totally permeable. And so we can talk, permeability is also why rivers and forests are actually so efficient and create this whole biodiversity, because there is this infiltration and again this redundancy, the diversity of shapes. So it's really, permeability is something that you can see everywhere and on your human skin as well. So it's a little bit of creative thinking that I'm asking there, but it's if you actually apply these systems to the way you can structure a movement or to the way you can actually communicate with your neighbors or with your local communities, then you start to imagine architectures, you start to imagine programs, you start to imagine behaviors in another way. I will explain again. Do you follow me? It's a little bit conceptual. So basically, that's an example from Tate. In London, it's actually a space called Tate Exchange. They have this big program called Tate Neighbors, and this is exactly what I'm talking about when I'm talking about infiltration and open spaces. So basically, it's an empty space where all the neighbors and local communities could actually come and do whatever they want. And they just need to apply or just to connect with the team and say, okay, I want to organize a breakfast, I want to organize a mini summit, I want to organize the beginning of a protest. It's just a space for people to actually have a voice and gather, basically. So it's actually this empty space, this open space that is giving the freedom for the people living around to come in Tate and do what they want. But if you have no empty space in the museum, you cannot actually foster this kind of interaction. And then why I'm actually talking about infiltration, it's because they have this program went so far that they actually changed the name of one of the buildings of Tate Modern, and Natalie Bell is actually an activist, very famous in the district around Tate Modern, but that I think you don't know about today. But the neighbors, the people living around Tate, they know this lady and they know how important she was for the people in London and the district. So it's how Tate actually allowed themselves to infiltrate the culture of the district into what they are now. That's this big name. When you actually enter Tate Modern, you have the big turbine hall, and you have the name, and it's huge. So that's just a proof of really good infiltration, thanks to this empty space that they actually organized before. Porosity. So what is actually porosity? That's eggshell, and why eggshell is a perfect ecosystem for a bird to grow. It's because eggshell is actually allowing enough water and different micro elements and microorganisms to go from the air to inside the eggshell and to nourish the egg so it can grow. So a porosity is a right balance of being open and being closed and just bringing what is necessary to what is inside. So if you actually apply this concept on museums, you have an example at Middlesbrough, again in the UK actually. So basically, they decided to ask the neighbors to bring one object that was very relevant to their mind, that was actually an example of their culture and the history of Middlesbrough. You have to know that Middlesbrough is a very non-cultural place at first. It's actually full of workers and full of migrants, and they don't care so much about museums and art and culture. However, the life is full of objects that is actually creating stories and memories, and so the museum basically asked, okay, can you bring it? So they have done this beautiful first exhibition with a lot of different objects, a lot of different stories. The team of the museum was actually analyzing the collection that they came up with, and they realized that there is this culture of clay pot making that actually got totally lost, and it was really, really important in the culture of the region. So what they actually decided to do is to create some clay pot making workshops, but it's not just about making things together, it's not just about creating some social bonding, but it's about learning new skills It's about finding new ways to find incomes, and it's actually about finding a way to fight the really hard work situation and work insecurity that Middlesbrough people have today. So from this community-based exhibition to new jobs and new source of income, this is how the museum could actually be powerful enough to allow something better and have a bigger impact on the locals and on the neighbors, basically. And then, so this one is actually redundancy. So why the water is actually able to go inside the soil like that, it's because there is a diversity of shapes, different kind of little stones, little grains, little soil, that is actually making the soil like opening like that. If you will actually have exactly the same stones, the water won't be able to go and won't be able to go through because it will be blocked. So it's really this diversity of shapes and diversity of profiles of components, I would say, that is making the water going through. So if you apply this concept on museums, you have a very good example in Senegal. It's actually a cultural space called Thread. And what they have done, they actually keep gathering different people in this space in a lot of empty places. So it's actually about redundancy and open spaces. This example, so there is a lot of people coming from the surrounding villages, a lot of people that are actually artists in residence coming from everywhere, and they all gather in Senegal. There is a lot of scientists, there is a lot of politicians as well. There is all these different farmers and neighbors and people that are actually feeling very welcome in this space, just to use the library, just to charge their phone, just to learn different ways of skewing, just to dance together. It's like this open space where you can learn from past traditions, you can learn from current artistic practices from international artists, or you can just learn from the other people living in different villages. So I'm not so sure it's actually well explained, and I'm very sorry about that, but if you check the website, you will definitely get the vibe much better than what I just said. But it's, again, this example is showing that open, leaving some empty places, is allowing people to get in and to connect. And I think this diversity of places and this diversity of profiles is actually creating this connection between people. And that's actually all. So the main concept is really this biomimetic museum. And I was talking about permeability, but if you start to actually think about circularity or different very bio-inspired concepts, and if you apply that to a movement or to a space, you actually start to think in a very consistent way, and you start to create something that is truly efficient. Because I've seen many museums trying to be porous or trying to infiltrate or trying to have empty spaces, but if you don't have the four components all together, that is actually not working. It's being forced, and it's not natural anymore.